Welcome, everybody. This is our first webinar as a City of Austin ecosystem coming at you live today. We are going to be talking about business priorities in times of disaster, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on who the City of Austin ecosystem, small business ecosystem was before we begin. A few years ago, some of the government and nonprofit resource organizations for small businesses decided that we were going to get together and form a coalition or an ecosystem to help collaborate in terms of bringing small business resources to the city, talking about common issues, and figure out better ways that we can help. So right now it is a large collaborative of some of the community lenders in the area, People Fund, Big Austin, Lift Fund, and BCL. We also have some other resource partners, some from the SBA, the Small Business Development Center, SCORE, and the Economic Growth Business Incubator, as well as the City of Austin, and a lot of other partners who want to come together to make sure that the city is well equipped when it comes to providing resources for small business. So with that, I'll introduce our speakers for the day. I am going to be moderating the panel. I'm Catherine. I am from People Fund. And then first up, in terms of speaker order, we've got Joni Foster, who's the program director for EGBI with us. Joni, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction there?
Hi, my name is Joni Foster. I work for EGBI, and I'm going to be the one going first because EGBI has a reputation of working with very small businesses, ones that are just getting started. And so I'm going to just, when it's my turn, I'm going to tell you, get you set up for the rest of the conversation.
Perfect. And then second, we've got Lance McNeil with, he's a program manager for the Small Business Program with the City of Austin Economic Development Department. Lance, you want to tell us about you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm excited about this conversation and hope you get a lot of takeaways. As Catherine mentioned, I'm with the city's Small Business Program, which is part of the Economic Development Department. You should check our website if you're not very familiar with us. We have a lot of programs, services, and we have great information about a lot of the relief efforts going on and a lot of those relief efforts, relief resources that are available to you. And we're continuing to update our website, austinsmallbiz.org. And so check that website, .gov, sorry, and check that website for resources. Or you can just Google Austin COVID small business and it'll take you directly to our search. It'll come up as a search option for you. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. And to round us out, we've got the executive director of the Texas State Small Business Development Center with us, Mr. Joe Harper. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Oh, great. Thank you all for allowing me to have some time this morning or this afternoon. Yeah, our program provides technical assistance to small businesses from the idea stage all the way to the exit stage. And what we seem to be wrapped up in mostly is trying to raise the capital, helping through the application process, and then talking about what's next now that we are in the process of restarting businesses. So that's just a little short version of where we are at the moment. So.
And the biggest thing about us is we are all resources for you, here to help you. And so I will share some contact information and additional ways that you can engage with us after the panel is over. We're going to go through some content here, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you do have a question and you want to use the chat is the best feature for that. And then we'll take it from there. So Joni, I'll stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
Perfect. So again, EGBI here, and we work with people who know their craft, but they typically have some gaps in their understanding about how the business of business works. But they've got the fire in their belly to start some kind of a Main Street business. We provide training, coaching, and support services for small businesses right here in Eastside Austin. And just to let you know, because we're all businesses at heart, EGBI, we have had to pivot just like everybody else, and we've embraced online meetings and workshops, and we provide COVID-19 support for helping small businesses keep afloat. So we've tried to stay abreast, just like all our other ecosystem partners, on the SBA products, the city products, and any ways to finance and float your business, including unemployment insurance. So my job today is to set the stage for our conversation today, and that's to get people on the same page. How come I don't see my option for sharing? Let me take a second here. There it is. So I'm going to tell you a story about it's a composite story of a typical client that we might have. And, they're sitting around the table, they just ate, and they say, dang, I make good tacos. I should open a business. And so they, with their friends or their wife or some loved one, they sit down and say, well, could I make any money at this? And so, well, I'll sell them for $1.50. The ingredients are only going to cost me 75 cents. I'm going to sell 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and maybe 20 tacos an hour. So I know how many tacos I'm going to sell a week. And when I first look at this, I could have revenue of $4,800 a month. It would cost me $2,400, and I would have a gross profit of $2,400, and that's pretty good. I'm going to try that. So I get excited, and I start moving down the way, and somebody loans me they have a food truck, and so that's great. I don't have to pay for that, but then I find out I have to go through all the regulations and have to pay for some upgrades to my food truck. And I might have to borrow money for that, but then I find out I have to pay. I found this great place to put it, and I have to pay for the pad in that parking lot, and that's a monthly fee. And then I find out I have to use a commercial kitchen, even though I don't really think I need it, but I'm going to have to for the regulations, and that's a monthly fee. And to get the commissary, I have to get insurance, and that's a monthly fee. And then I realize I need a cell phone and gas to get around, and when I grow bigger, I need a bookkeeping system. All of those become the fixed expenses. That's what's missing from your first initial, yeah, this might just work. So fixed expenses are those things that it doesn't matter how many customers you have, or even if you're opened, particularly right now, you're paying those. And so you have to put them in your calculation in order to be a business person managing the finances of your business. So marketing budgets. Some of you say, well, I don't do any marketing. And that's where hopefully you're wrong a little bit, because you put your food truck out there and you realize nobody's stopping by because there's not a sign out there. And so you get a little bit of extra cash and you wrap your trailer with a big sign, tacos are us. And then you buy a couple of Yelp ads and you get a website so people can see your menu, and you might have some flyers and so now you're starting to have some monthly expenses on your budgeting. So you have to make sure that's in your budget too. And you have to think that you need those marketing expenses because you're trying to increase your customer base. And then you open this food truck and you get your mom and your brother and your sister and your wife to work with you there. And then they get about the first month, they say, well, I'm sort of tired, or I'm sick, or I don't want to do this anymore. And so you end up having to hire staff. And so you get your first assistant, and and you start having to pay taxes, and you're bringing them in, and you're going to have to pay them no matter if you have one customer or not. So that's part of your budget. And so time goes by, and you realize if you had written all of this down, it would probably look something like this. And it's a profit. It's the beginning basic profit and loss statement, where you have revenues, the cost to you, we call them COGS, cost of goods sold. Then we have the gross profit that you at the beginning thought was what you were going to put in your pocket. Then you have other expenses that you add in here that you hadn't maybe anticipated. And before you know it, you're at a negative net profit. You're not making any money. So what actually happens is you put your food truck in this great place, and on Friday and Saturdays, you are doing a bang-up job. You're making $1,000 a day. But the other days aren't so good, maybe $250, $200 on those off days. So after Saturday, you go to the bank, and on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you've got money in the bank and you're real excited and you feel like you're, right on top of things. Wednesday comes along, you start paying bills, and Friday you do payroll. And Friday night, you're white knuckling it to make the revenue because you got to get it in the bank Saturday morning so you don't have overdrafts because you did payroll. So hopefully everybody on this call who are business owners saw this cycle at the very beginning, but are way past that cycle, and that you have put together some bookkeeping systems. And you might have started in a notebook, but now you have a system so you can at least add these revenue and expenses up at the end of the month, and look at these expenses and make business decisions from them. So if it wasn't working before the shutdown, if your business really wasn't making a profit before the shutdown, it's going to be really hard right now to help you understand cash flow enough to help you be successful and to succeed in this time of COVID-19. But and if you don't have the financial systems, you've already noticed that it's sort of hard to apply for any of the SBA funds or the unemployment insurance or any other funds, because you have to prove that your business was earning something, and you have to give people financial statements. But if your business was working, if you were hustling to make a profit and you were doing okay before the pandemic, it's even more important to take time today, is maybe, hopefully not your first look at this, but it's time to beef up your bookkeeping systems and your understanding of cash flow to make a plan to get through this crisis. And so I'm going to pass this on to Lance in a second, but I just want to remind people that there is this ecosystem of small business support in Austin that can help you. Y yo quiero decir que los compañeros de trabajo a EGBI hablan inglés y español, y estamos a la orden. So you can contact EGBI in English or in Spanish, and we're here to help you. So I'm passing this on to Lance.
Thank you, Joni. I think that helps set a good foundation for the things you need to know to understand cash flow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on that foundation you've established and look at how we can use the actual cash flow statement to begin to think about different scenarios over the next several months. And the idea behind it, the purpose is to have, you may have multiple scenarios, right? The future is unknown. You may be getting back into business and normalizing faster than other businesses, or this may drag on. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns, and this is where kind of the power of running different scenarios comes in, because it allows you to plan for maybe a best case scenario, a very pessimistic or worst case scenario, and then maybe some average in the middle there, right? So through this process, it allows you to look at when you will run out of cash, basically, right? That is the sole purpose of the cash flow statement. And that's important because when you run out of cash, that is when the business ends, right? That's when bill collectors start coming, the landlord locks the door. That's when it's all over, right? So what we're trying to do is think about ways which we can stretch our cash to make it past these disruptions and get back to a point of normalcy. So I'm going to share my screen with you all as well. And if you have questions as they come up, you can type those into the chat box and we'll address those as a panel. So I'm going to share a Excel spreadsheet with you. And this is a simplified cash flow statement. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit here. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that. My fellow panelists, let me know if something's up. But this is a template that was built by the organization called SCORE. They're a nonprofit organization offering mentorship, and they have a bunch of great resources on their website at score.org, including these templates. So it may look very complex, but I'm going to walk it walk through it just for a little bit with you and kind of break it down and simplify it a little bit. So this is a cash flow statement looking forward over the next 12 months. So month one would be in our current month, month two would be June, and so forth. And what this is going to tell you is that at the beginning of each month, how much cash do you have now? What is sitting in your checking account? And then at the end of the month, it's going to tell you how much is left. All right, so let's walk through this just for a second. So you have your beginning cash balance. You have, this is what you're starting out with in your checking account. Then you have those cash inflows. This is money coming into the business. And this comes from two sources, cash sales. So this is transactions that are made within that same month, and the cash is received that same month. You may be in a business that relies on accounts receivable, where you do the work, you perform the work, but you're not getting paid for it in the same month in which you're doing the work. Your customer may pay 30 days later, they may pay 60 days later, they may pay 90 days later, depending on the terms that you have with that customer, and also during these disruptions, what they're experiencing and as another business, especially if you're selling to other businesses, right? So these are the ways in which money is coming into the business from sales, from revenue. This is going to total your total cash inflows. So cash flows is all about cash coming in, inflows, and cash going out. So we're going to look now at the cash outflows. All right. These can be, as Joni mentioned, your cost of goods sold. They can be purchases of additional inventory. They can be purchases of new equipment or new fixed assets. They can also be operating activities, and Joni mentioned some of these examples as well. For example, marketing, right? Marketing is a great example of operating expenses, as is rent, as is utility expenses. There are all kinds of examples, common examples of operating expenses, but they're all cash outflows, as you're well aware. So is payroll. Payroll are your labor costs, the human resources that help drive your business and keep it going, including yourself as a owner in the business, especially if you're paying yourself a salary. You're on the payroll. We've got taxes. That's an outflow. If you have current debt, that's a loan payment, so that's cash outflow as well. And we've also got other ways to offer compensation to owners and investors through an owner distribution or a draw or dividends paid to investors. Those can be outflows as well. So what this spreadsheet does is it takes all the inflows, takes all the outflows, and it tells you what you're left with. So let's look at an example filled in. All right. Let me zoom here again. Okay, so we've got that same spreadsheet now with an example of some numbers plugged in. I've got 10,000 in my business checking account right now, and that is my beginning cash balance. Okay, I've made some sales. Sales are not what they were, not what I would hope they would be under the current circumstances, but I made 7,200 in cash sales, no accounts receivable, just to keep this simple. I've accounted for my cost of goods sold, just like Joni's taco example. What does it cost for those ingredients? What does it cost for the direct labor in making those? And then I've got my operating expenses. Okay, these are again the rent, the marketing that I'm doing, and then I've got payroll. So how many full-time, part-time employees do I have? This is totaling out to about $7,000 a month. And so I'm bringing those payroll costs over, and we can see pretty quickly here that we're going to have a deficit because we only brought 7,200 in. Well, our payroll alone is nearly that much, right? I've got a small loan on the book, so I'm making those monthly loan payments. My total cash outflows are 11,000. My total cash inflows are 7,000. I've got a net cash flow deficit. More went out than came in, so I've got negative cash flow right now. So what we're looking at now is an ending cash balance of about $6,000, and that is because we started with 10, we had 4,000 negative cash flow, and we end with about 6,000 there. All right, so that ending cash balance for month one becomes your beginning cash balance for month two. All right, so I start June I'm forecasting that I'll only have $6,000 left in the bank. Cash sales kind of stay steady. We're still, struggling to get back to normal here. So I can't, in this scenario, expect a huge increase in sales. But I've still got the same cost of goods sold. Those fixed operating expenses are the same. That payroll is the same. Everything's the same. So I'm depleting my cash. Again, at the end of the month, I've got that same negative cash flow of $4,000. But now I'm really dipping into my cash reserves here. And I've only got $2,000 at the end of month 2. That becomes the starting cash balance again for the next month. So I start month 3 with $2,000. And I'm running that same scenario here, and I've basically run out of cash in this scenario in month 3, right? So I've still got all those expenses. Sales are not going to be able to cover all of those expenses, and I've depleted all of my cash, and I'm about $1,100 short of the cash I need to continue business operations. Through this scenario, by this cash flow forecasting, I'm able to see that I can only make it 2 more months. And sometime within month 3, I'm going to run out of cash and I'm going to have to close down my business. Okay. So what can we do? What levers can we pull to try and change this, to try and stretch cash and make it for a longer period? You can think about it like a runway. You're in a plane, you're trying to take off. You need enough runway to take off, right? And we've only got about a 2.5, 3 month runway here, and we need a longer runway. So let's look at one last example before I pass it on to Joe, who's going to give us, I think, a couple of other scenarios and some other advice. But this is a scenario where we respond to that cash deficit, where we look at our cash needs and say, we're going to run out of money by month 3. What other scenario can I help influence so that we don't run out of money in month 3? So again, we're starting out here with $10,000. We've got that same cash sale revenue projection. Cost of goods sold are the same. Not a lot we can do to change that. Operating expenses are still there, but I'm going to look at my payroll. Okay, I'm going to look at how can I cut back on my payroll. There's a lot of options to do this, and not all of them include the worst case scenario of having to fire somebody, right? We can, as an owner, I can bring in less money. I have a lot of flexibility to take a pay cut, and we're seeing CEOs and company owners across the board step up and say, okay, I'm going to take a pay cut first and foremost. And so that is an option. Owners have that flexibility. You can also reduce the number of hours for your employees. You can also cut pay. Okay, there's a lot of levers that you can pull. None of them are best case. None of them are ideal. But if I've got, as we saw, $7,000 plus in payroll expenses, and I'm only bringing in that much in cash, then I've really got a dire situation and I need to act. So I do what I need to do to cut back on payroll in the short term, and that's going to free up those cash flows for me. And so now in this scenario, I've got enough cash. I'm still negative cash, okay? But I've got enough cash now to last me through month 3, through month 4. And by that point, what I'm hoping, if we look here at the cash sales line, is that maybe by month 4, month 5, month 6, and so on, I can start to get more revenue as consumer confidence increases, hopefully as we increase sales. Maybe I've got an idea to pivot and expand my revenue generating opportunities. And we're seeing that with distilleries who are now making hand sanitizer. We're seeing that with fashion designers who are now making masks, looking at different ways that I can start to earn revenue besides my prior existing business model, so that I can diversify my income during this, right? We may also see some improvements in the economy where consumers are wanting to go back out and shop and visit retail. And so hopefully that is happening as well. Once we get those cash sales back, we're trying to make it to that point. Then we can bring payroll back to normal. We can start hiring again, or make someone who is full-time again, start paying ourselves a little bit better. There's all kinds of scenarios that we can do. The the real value in this exercise is there's so many variables here, as you just saw. They're very difficult to try and hold all in your head at once. You have to put them on paper. You have to put the numbers in front of you so that you can manipulate them through these different scenarios and see what might work and what might not, right? Besides cutting payroll, we also called up our lender and we said, hey, can you defer loan payments for a couple of months, right? So now we have no loan payments for 2 months. We had a nice lender. They said, sure, under these circumstances, we'll let you have loan deferment for 30 or 60 days without penalty. And this is a reasonable ask, right? Would that lender rather give you loan deferment for 30 or 60 days? Or would they rather see you go bankrupt and they lose all of their money, right? These are extraordinary, unprecedented times. And so it is not unreasonable to make these asks of your lender, of your landlord, of your utility company, of your employees, of yourself as an owner to take a cut, of your suppliers. Maybe you can ask the suppliers if they would allow you to pay in 60 days instead of 30. These are all asks that you can make to try and manipulate these levers within cash flow to keep the cash going, to extend that runway until we get back to a point of normalcy. So again, this template is available through SCORE, and I think we can share that link. But we also have coaches, small business coaches who can provide the technical assistance to help you set this up and help you walk through these spreadsheets. Maybe you've never seen this and you're like, wow, this is way too much for me. I don't even know how to start. No problem. We can work with you one-on-one in a no-cost confidential way to provide that technical assistance, to look over these numbers, to think through some different scenarios with you and help see if we can make that cash flow stretch. So that's all I have on this. I want to turn it over to Joe Harper with Small Business Development to talk a little bit more about cash flow and some things that he's seeing. So Joe, if you're ready, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you, Lance. Let me try to get the bring up my share my screen if I can real quick. Well, I'm not sure what just happened, but we'll see. I'm seeing a slide. I'm hoping you all are seeing it as well. So great.
Yes, sir.
The Small Business Development Center has been around for about 45, 50 years. We provide technical assistance to small businesses. And one of the things that we've really been working on recently has been addressing the need for cash and understanding cash flow. And both Joni and Lance have laid out a process of cash flow. And Joni talked about what cash flow is. Lance talked about how to manage it. I'd like to take you on a journey that we do with our clients on how to improve cash flow. Because it's the single most important consideration, especially with businesses that are in survival mode. You need to know where cash is because it's going to be very difficult to add to it while you're in this transition. And for all practical purposes, the businesses now are starting over. They need to access cash and as much of it as they can muster. The old adage, cash is king. Well, that becomes glaringly obvious when a business has to pay for something and cash is trapped, is tied up somewhere. Credit will get you so far, but it really kind of prolongs the inevitable need for cash. And equity usually means you're going to give up a part of your dream. So our goal is to help our clients minimize the need for outside sources of capital, and then for them to learn how to manage cash early provides business and really provides the strength of the business in times of crisis. So understanding cash flow can be challenging. Managing cash flow is difficult and requires a considerable amount of time and effort. But improving cash flow requires discipline. And that's kind of where we're going to, that's the path that I'm kind of going down now is to talk a little bit about what that process looks like. I lost my place here. When we focus on where do we start, clients start with breaking down the elements of cash flow and developing strategies from improving the cash position. kind of at every stage of the cash cycle. So when we think about that cash cycle, and I don't have a visual for you, but I'd like for you to visualize, if you could, the process. So cash comes in. Cash then goes to inventories, which then go to sales, which then what creates receivables, which then comes back to cash. And so what we're trying to do is to help clients understand that cycle, how to manage that cycle, and for the clients to break down the elements and to break down the cash flow into some specific elements. We would help them learn where the cash is. So aside from obvious cash on hand, which, and I have to say that many of my clients in the beginning, we call that the beginning cash, and a lot of them don't know where the beginning cash comes from, and that's the first problem, which our owner's investment is, which is one of the reasons why our owner's investment is critical. Starting with the cash position that's available, we guide them through how to add to that availability. And let me, I need to advance my slide here. Hold on a second. So we started out talking about improving the cash flow, and an assessment of inventory. When we start with that, we're looking at understanding where your cash went, building a cash position, and preserving a cash position. And so those are the sort of the processes, the steps, if you will, of what we do. The first thing we want to do is talk about where is the cash. Beginning cash, we know where that is. That's cash. But there are other things, and both Joni and Lance mentioned it, that cash is also caught up in a couple of other areas. One is in inventories, and the other is in accounts receivable. So what we need to try to do is figure out, how do we convert that cash? We need to go through a process of converting that trapped cash into real cash, which then allows us to fund the operation of the business going forward. When we take a look at inventory, we can do an assessment of inventory, and that would reveal the actual value. So with a process called Rethinking Your Business, we help the clients consider what revenue streams are still a viable option and what type of inventory still meets that demand. Let's excuse the fact that retail, supply chain, and manufacturing all treat inventory differently, and let's just focus on classifying inventory kind of in two basic categories. It's emerging inventory, meaning there's an emerging market for it, or it's an end-of-life inventory, means it's become stale and it's no longer desirable. So what we do is we help the clients work through a process of identifying their inventory and separating it out into those two categories. And there's a purpose for this, and we're going to get to it in a minute, is that the goal is to convert existing inventory into cash so that inventory that retains its value can be leveraged for future sales. The inventory that is at its end of life can be discounted, and sometimes discounted heavily. And we've had clients where we've had a conversation about what's your inventory really look like and what's it worth to you. And the first argument I get on that is that, well, yeah, but if I discount it, I lose money. Well, understand that having cash trapped in inventory is already lost money. It's not available to you for your business. It's not available to you for your bank account. It's lost. It's already lost. And so taking a look at that and understanding how that works in your business is important. I'm trying to work my papers here. So when we look at the argument that I'll lose money and that cash flow is trapped into inventory, what we want you to think about is identifying what inventory levels are required for the sales that you planned on going forward, and then understanding that you have maybe excess inventory that you need to work through before you start talking about adding inventory. So you want to reduce that inventory that doesn't have value or has little value, and you want to stabilize the inventory that you need. And we want to think about something about inventory turns, is that making sure you don't have too much inventory. In fact, it's probably a good idea, and we encourage our clients to focus on just-in-time systems, creating a strategy of where they bring in the inventory they need just before they have to push it out, and that they're managing inventory very tightly, keeping those turns under 30 days. That's important because that keeps cash in the business. We have a program that's called Profit Mastery, and when we teach that program, we actually demonstrate to clients how a day's difference in a turn, what that actually means as dollars in that per day. And so it's really important to understand that it's important to turn inventory. Don't leave inventory sitting on the shelf because that's cash on the shelf that you need to have access to. One of the principal strategies we work with is to also, and Lance talked about it a little bit, is to negotiate with the suppliers. You don't get what you don't ask for. And so looking for better pricing, cash discounts, all of those reduce the cash obligation to inventory. The other thing that we talked about was accounts receivable. And I know it seems counterproductive to minimize cash trapped in inventory and then extend credit for sales of that inventory, trading one form of captivity for another. And this is interesting times that we're in, because now we have an opportunity to sort of reset our policies, reset our businesses, because we need to change the expectations for our customers as well. And right now, limit credit whenever possible. Because when you extend credit, you're retrapping that cash back into a form that's not usable for the purpose of producing sales. And extending credit to generate sales, it has been a good strategy in the past, but now it provides a sort of a high risk. And to reduce that risk, we want you to focus on collecting early and often. Don't let accounts receivables go longer than 30 days. Implement strategies that encourage customers to pay early. You know, you just asked about cash, or if you're asking your vendors for better prices and better terms, then when you think about your receivables, you need to make sure that you're having a conversation that those receivables can't go beyond 30 days, keeping that cash in a 1-month cycle rather than stretching it out wherever possible, and encouraging the customers to pay early. Our guidance includes developing a collection strategy and a plan of execution. So we sit down with clients and talk to them about what's going to be your collection strategy going forward, because you need to maintain, or you need to capture as much cash as you can throughout the process. And how are you planning on executing that collection strategy? And so with that, we understand how to where the cash is located. It's cash on hand, it's cash in inventories, and it's cash in accounts receivable. The next thing we want to focus on then is the adding cash to the pile and preserving the cash in the, I went too far, hang on a minute. Adding cash to the pile. When we think about adding cash to the pile, cash flows come in a business through 3 main sources. And I know that Lance talked about this a little bit. One is equity, which is an owner's injection. The other is debt, which can be working capital. The third part then is going to be is cash sales. It's sales that comes into the business. And these are the first two aren't really available to you if the third one it doesn't exist. And so it's kind of important that we keep our eye on where our cash is going. And so the purpose of the PPP and EIDL funds were designed to sort of keep cash in the process, to allow you to continue to operate until you could actually generate cash or regenerate additional cash as you go, as you reopen, that sort of thing. Generating sales begins with capacity. Capacity is a two-way street. There must be a capacity in the market for the sales goals. So in other words, if you think you can sell something, then you have to actually be able to see that capacity in the marketplace. The other thing is the capacity internal to the business. And what really drives internal capacity is cash available to the business to generate sales with. That's why cash flow is so important. And keeping this right requires an honest review of your current cash position. We encourage our clients to find alternative revenue streams. And I know that Lance mentioned that as well with the mask and the hand sanitizers. So we're always looking for how do we create additional sales. But one of the things we want to be careful is that we only have a certain amount of cash available to us with the purpose of generating sales. Where you apply that cash will impact decisions about where you begin to try to push sales. So you always need to be aware of if you decide you're going to pivot and do something that may or may not impact your overall long-term business. But that's part about rethinking the business and understanding what that decision might look like. The next piece that we want to talk about is going past myself, is preserving the cash. Cost of goods, payroll, general administrative expenses, all of those are full of unmanaged use of cash. And what I mean by that is that every one of those on a line item basis need to be reviewed. We work through that with our clients. We sit down, we look at line item, we start with the cost of goods, we go through the payroll, making decisions about what that looks like, and then we look at general and administrative expenses to understand. Sorry, people, I'm not used to using technology, apparently. So, so for analytical purposes, we measure the expenses as a percentage of sales to kind of ensure the return of the use of cash, since cash is driving sales. If our goal is to reduce the need for cash, then we need to address cost in areas as accounts payables. So one of the things that I wanted us to look at with addressing the use of cash was we talked about payroll. And payroll is a little trickier since the forgiveness of the PPP is tied to maintaining your current workforce. And that forgiveness is important to you going forward. But we need to look at who and how many you need to meet your cash generated sales goals. So now is a good time to really take the time to think about what your team composition is going to look like going forward. Who do you need to have to move your business forward? And so when the 8 weeks is up and you've got to make some decisions about payroll and people, you need to look and see. It's all about productivity. What can I do? How much money? Every dollar you spend needs to generate sales, additional sales, and needs to cover those expenses. And so you need to reevaluate how you're looking at your payroll and your people. When you look at general and administrative expenses, as I mentioned before, we go down line by line. And I think one of the things that really jumped out with a client recently was the travel expense. Maintaining a high level of travel expense in a time when you can't travel is probably not a good idea. But looking and saying, do each one of those things, what role does each one of those things play in generating sales? And so when you go through rent and utilities, and phone, supplies, repairs and maintenance, insurance, travel expense, when you go through those things, you're trying to look and see which ones can I adjust and which ones can I eliminate. And then what happens at the end of the process is now I'm trying to redo my. So as we go through and we're controlling the cash the cash is going out, the cost of goods, the payroll, and the general administrative expenses. The next thing we talk about is that preservation of cash. And I want to end with the ending cash, because if we go through the steps that everyone's talked about, what we wind up with at the end is a bigger pile of cash. And remember, cash is what we focus, is to be focused on generating future sales. And so we manage cash flow so that we make sure that we're using the money properly. We're looking at how do we improve cash flow so we can begin our growth process. And that the building on the foundation for growth is preserving cash. And I'll stop there. I do.
Perfect. Well, now we are at 12:45, which gives us a perfect runway, no pun intended, for Q&A here. So we'll go ahead and get that started. If you guys have any questions from the audience, you can go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll go ahead and round us out though. You can see, let's see, let's go with our first question. So we've talked about cash flow heavily today, in terms of that being one of the #1 priorities you have to understand if you want to remain solid in this business. And we talked about the cash runway. For the panelists, is there anything that I can do if I realize that I've hit that runway, I've hit the end of my runway and I don't have any more cash? What are some of my options? Is my only option to close down my business, or are there other options that I can work through?
I'll just quickly say there's never been cheaper cash available through the Paycheck Protection Program. Loan is at 1% interest. There's other loan programs in this community at 3.75% interest. There are low interest loans available that can help you extend that runway. You may not want to take out debt. You may not want to be dependent on repaying a loan. But like Catherine said, if it's between that and closing up the business, I think that's one viable option. There's also grant funds available. They're highly sought after and limited, but there are some. I know the City of Austin, through the Federal CARES Act, that is kind of the umbrella over the Paycheck Protection Program, is going to be receiving some money, and then they're going to allocate a little bit for small business grants. I've heard numbers as high as 10 million, maybe more. And that pot of funds, that $10 million pot of funds, can be broken down for small grants, maybe $10, $20, $30, $40,000. They're still working out the details to get to small businesses here in Austin, to kind of help extend the runway. I think all these resources have come together to offer things, but they're Band-Aids, right? And they're not going to get you all the way there, but it's something to look into. I don't know if panelists have some other ideas.
I agree, Lance. I think that you need to look at as many sources as you can. I mean, when you talk about the choice of closing the business or taking on debt, I would strongly consider taking on debt at that point. I know that it's not something that people necessarily want to do, but it's about survival. And as long as you've taken the steps necessary to make sure that you're managing what cash you do have as a responsible way, then adding that debt in there, bringing on that additional cash, that's the lifeline. That's what you're pulling in and you're going to try to survive with. So I agree with you on that statement.
I'm going to take another look at this though, because I know for a lot of our clients, they are not, their businesses are not as robust. And if you have already, we've been almost 2 months into this, and if you are already without cash and you did not plan on this, especially if you have employees and you are not generating a quarter or less of the revenue you were before this, you should stop and call one of your ecosystem partners, either one of us on the screen or one of our other partners like SCORE, etc., and work with somebody like one of us business coaches, because you're going to need some really strong counseling about how to stop your bleed as quickly as possible. I know a lot of our clients do not have the resources to carry this out, and you will get yourself buried in debt that you'll never get out of unless you stop the bleed. And sometimes it takes somebody like us to say, oh, I know you love your staff. I know you want to take care of them. Let's help them get on unemployment. Let's help them. You want to take care of your staff, and we're here to help you think about what those options are. So yes, if you can get into the SBA programs, if you can get a very low interest loan, if some of that makes sense for you, great. But if you're not there yet, please call us and help us help you get out of this awful situation as gracefully as possible.
Thanks for that. So we do have a question from one of the participants. If we've received the PPP loan and we bring all of our employees back, But at the end of the 8 weeks, the money's gone and we don't have work for the employees. What do we do next? Lay the employees off again? So if we don't come out of this 25% operational function right now, or we get to a point where we're not operating again after this, we're still not in operational phase after these 8 weeks, what are our next steps?
Well, that's some of what we were talking about, and really considering what your payroll needs are going to be. What level of productivity can the business support, and how many employees do you really need to have? And it may be a situation where you wind up having to let them go again, or it becomes another furlough. But now is the time to be thinking about who in your organization is going to carry you forward at that 25% level, at that 50% level. And understand those levels are what you have permission to go to. That doesn't mean the market is going to respond the same way. So you may have the ability to serve 25 or 50%, but you may not be actually seeing that level of customers coming into the door, even after we go through this restart process. It could still be months. So the likelihood that 8 weeks after you've used your funds for keeping those employees on board, you may have to still make a decision about, well, which employees have I run the gamut and has it worked out, and can I stay with what I have, or do I need to make the hard decisions about who's going to be best for my business going forward.
Great. In terms of managing my cash flow, what are some resources out there that I might utilize? Are there any technology resources I can utilize in addition to the score template? Are there any apps that may make this easier for me to visualize what my runway looks like?
Go ahead.
Well, I think that the template we're offering you, it's free, it's on SCORE's website, and it's as good a template and simple, relatively simple. And you can find apps that might try to generate this, but honestly, this is the business owner and your best thinking. We're all looking into crystal balls and trying to project what we think is going to happen. And so this idea about PPP coming in, we have 2 months. Now is the time to put that PPP into your cash flow. That's part of that. When it comes in May, you put it under cash, starting cash in May, and it adds to your cash flow analysis. And with your projections, conservative projections about how long does that PPP, even if it only goes till June 20th, does it buy you time with the revenue you can generate to go past that? Or do you know what you have to do come July 1st if things haven't changed, right? So now's the time to do it. Don't wait till 2 days before calamity hits and you just figured this out.
Yeah, there are a lot of resources out there that you can tap into. It's Profit Soup, Profit Mastery, Score. The reason Score has really good products and they're free. So there's a good place to start, and they're not a lot different than some of the things that you'd actually pay for in the marketplace.
Great. So when I work with clients, this is one of the things that either people really, really love or really, really hate in terms of looking at. There are other things that I think that we can do in terms of maximizing our cash flow right now. And you hit on some of those. What expenses are absolutely necessary if we were to hit on it line item by line item? And what expenses should I really consider cutting?
Well, there are some expenses that, as Joni said, are fixed. You really can't change that. You're contractually obligated to it. But you can look at those other expenses where you might have some opportunities to reduce or even eliminate. And I start by looking at which one are important to generating future sales. So you start with what's going to generate you additional cash flow. If it's not going to contribute to that process, then it probably can be reduced or eliminated until such time as it's important. And a lot of times we have expenses on our books that are really there to help us generate growth. Well, right now we're in a survival mode. So we need to look at those things that we were thinking about using to generate growth and say, we need to turn that cash into generating sales.
Gotcha. We've got another question from the participant. So, do they have to bring on all of their employees once they open? What if they know that they won't generate enough revenue to keep them on payroll, even though they've gotten the PPP?
Well, the PPP allows you some margin. You can have your payroll be reduced by as much as 25% and still be in that forgiveness range. But again, understand that anything you do regarding reducing the number of people or the size of your payroll will have has a potential impact on the forgiveness component of the PPP. So keeping that in mind, but I would be smart. And one of the things that I heard on the Coleman report the other day is that so you take the money out, and it was originally designed for you to have everybody back on board, but that didn't happen. They said, well, that would then be downgraded based on what the same percentage of your payroll was reduced in terms of the forgiveness. But you still have that cash. You can simply just pay the rest of that debt back off with the available cash, and it still, in essence, becomes a 100% forgivable piece.
And I would just add to that, just one quick thing. Let's say you can't bring them back on because bringing them all back on and keeping them would mean the business fails. And so by letting some go, you can keep the business afloat. Well, that part of the PPP won't be forgiven, right? But it'll need to be repaid at just 1% interest. So
yeah. And I would also add the big and most important thing for many businesses, if you have employees, is your employees are your biggest asset. And maybe you can look at your employees and say, well, not all of them are, but right now, if you let your employees go, they're back out in the marketplace, and there's no guarantee that they're going to come back to you. And if you spend a lot of time and trouble of training them, and you have a fear that they are hot and could go out and find a different job, you want to try and use that PPP money to retain absolutely your best employees, to make sure that when you are ready to reopen, that you have the quality staff in place ready to go.
Well, and something that Lance said about, we encourage that the leftover cash you didn't use for the purpose of payroll, don't use that cash for other purposes unless you really want to have that 1% for 2 years. But also understand, even at 1%, 2 years on whatever that is that you're financing, that's a term. That's a 24 payments that will impact your cash flow because it won't be forgiven. So you need to keep all of those things in mind. That's why we encourage them that leverage the forgiveness as much as you can, but then what's left over and not available for forgiveness because of then just simply use it. It's not necessarily returning the money because it does have to go through an actual pay process. You can't just say, here, give it back, but you just go ahead and pay the balance of the note back on the unforgiving part.
So we are rounding out our time here. It is about 1 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so you can see our contact information as well as the link to the City of Austin Small Business Resources site. Can you guys see that there? Did it share appropriately? Perfect.
Yes.
So you've got our contact information. Just to let you all know, this is one of the first webinars that we have done together, and we are planning on doing many more on different topics to help keep this going and to continue providing resources for you. Some upcoming topics might include revenue model pivoting, building customer confidence, engaging with your employees, and planning for the new normal, whether that be starting a new business or expanding your own opportunity in a little bit of a different way than you have before. So we'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Panelists, do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the audience before we close out?
Thank you for letting us have this time with you. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Recording of this webinar will be posted to the city's small business YouTube site. I've placed a link in the chat for everyone if you want to check that out. It may take a day or two to get it up there. And then, yeah, if you've got our contact information here, I'll just kind of go back and really reinforce the fact that each of these organizations provides coaching and technical assistance on some level through the City of Austin Small Business Program. Anyone in the metro area, all 5 counties who has a business, who is interested in starting a business, who's trying to save a business, if you are interested in technical assistance on cash flow or maybe ideas to market the business or revenue generating ideas, you can meet with one of our coaches. It's no cost. It is confidential. It will be through Zoom or over the phone, but it can be very helpful. So just reach out to us. We're happy to help. And thank you again.